The decisions that we make here will be the difference between us continuing from this moment forward into the next few months and years to be able to expand our businesses and actually do it faster and easier than ever before, or completely go out of business. People are struggling online right now. They're struggling to get people's attention. And if they have it, they're struggling to convert them into clients. And people just are not as willing to get their credit card out their wallet right now or purse and go ahead and pay. Yet we did a 7-figure offer. If you do this well, and if you do this right, you could actually have 10 people on Zoom and 5 of them become a client. And imagine your offer is $5,000. You're talking about a $25,000 day, a $25,000 moment when you had just 10 people on a Zoom call. So you can do the math. The numbers get quite big quite fast, even from small numbers. But here's the kicker. Once you decide, you have to accept the decision that you've made. You can't have it all. You can't have the cheapest leads with the least amount of work, but the highest quality and the highest conversions, right? Like, how did that happen? Why did that happen? I know why it happened. It happened because... Hey, welcome back to the Expansion Podcast. And this is the third part of a 3-part series that we've been doing here on the podcast. And so if you haven't listened to part 1 and part 2, it's actually very important that you go back and check those out. In part 1, I was sharing some potentially terrifying news, but also exciting news, depending on how you are positioned and how you're viewing it. We talked about the changes that are happening within the industry, being our industry, selling courses, coaching, services, training, client acquisition, marketing, social media, this marketplace as a whole. The big changes that are occurring because of AI and that being such a disruptor. And then the knock-on effect of that with how high competition is right now and how much harder it is for us to be seen and be heard and find the clients that we want and navigate the terrain here, trust being at an all-time low and skepticism being at an all-time high. And so we talked about that in episode 1. Then we discussed how to navigate that, respond to that, so that we can make sure that we establish ourselves online all the more and still find a way to get to our clients. We talked about how we position our offers and our branding and our operations. So go back and check out part 1. Part 2, we then talked about how we respond to these changes in the form of traffic. When we're going out there on social media and building an audience, right? On YouTube or with a podcast or LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, like how does this change? And how do we make sure that we're still staying on top of this? Same with buy it traffic, paid ads on Meta, YouTube, LinkedIn, and others. And then we talked about the concept of borrowing traffic, finding other people that have the audience that you want and getting in front of those people. And again, how it all ties in and how we can make sure that we understand this, we're making some good decisions and driving our business forward and continuing to expand this even amongst the storm that's headed our way. And so you've got to go back and check out those first 2 episodes. So pause this one right now, check those out, come back when you're ready. So with that being said, if you're still here, that's great. Strap in and let's talk about the third and final part here. We're looking at this 5-part momentum framework, starting with step 1, your foundations, getting your house in order. Step 2 is the way in which we're getting attention, so driving traffic and getting eyeballs on our stuff. We're buying it, we're building it, but we're borrowing it. Then it moves to step 3, which is marketing, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And then beyond that, we've got step 4, which is sales, actually converting interested prospects into clients. And then step 5 is nurture and convert. How do we turn more of those interested prospects into buyers over time? Over the course of the last 3 episodes, including this one, I've been explaining that if we improve step 1, 2, and 3, we're actually going to get greater results out of step 4 and 5. We're going to see more sales and an increase in uptake in the long run as well because of these changes. Of course, episode 1 was step 1, episode 2 was step 2, and here we are, episode 3, talking about step 3, which is marketing. So with that context set, how do we change and how are we needing to and expected to change our marketing approach, be it the way we're building our email list, the way we're building our sales funnels, the way in which we're providing value, not on social media, but actually on the inside of our sales funnels and our websites and our business's ecosystem to make sure that we're still landing the client? Well, I've got a list of things that I want to take you through. This was off the back of a 90-minute session that I did with my expansion mastermind where we were diving deep into this. And I've got the notes open from that, and I want to share many of my thoughts with you. So here we go. If you've got a pen and a notepad, if you're in a position to take notes, then I suggest that you do. First thing, I think that more and more there's going to be great benefit by having this personal touch and this high touch, this personal high touch and personal connection within our business and the marketing and conversion vehicle that we have. You know, where AI is coming in and sweeping our industry as it is every other industry, it means that where there used to be human-to-human interaction and where there used to be high touch, it's no longer present. So I think that the more AI is replacing the way in which we market, the way in which we find clients, and the way in which we even deliver to clients, which we spoke about in the first part of this series, I think there's actually going to be a desire for more of that personal connection. And so we can lean into that by making sure that's a part of our process, and we're actually baking that in. I think back to the offer that I made at my annual conference called AdCom. It's a marketing and entrepreneurship conference. We have people in the room there that are interested in learning how to grow and scale their online information or coaching or service-based businesses, and that's my target market. So I made an offer to that room of a few hundred people, and we did around about 1.2 million in sales. And what that taught me, as I've mentioned in previous episodes, was something quite fascinating, which was at a time where people are struggling online right now. They're struggling to get people's attention. And if they have it, they're struggling to convert them into clients. And as I've talked about so many times now, trust is at an all-time low, skepticism at an all-time high, and people just are not as willing to get their credit card out their wallet right now or purse and go ahead and pay. Yet we did a 7-figure offer from stage to a room of a few hundred people. Like, how did that happen? Why did that happen? I know why it happened. It happened because we gave those people an incredible experience when they came to that event, where the online stuff is getting a bit hazy and becoming a bit of a gray area, and you don't really know who to trust and what's real anymore. There was something special, and is still something special, about getting into a room of people, rubbing shoulders with people who are doing what you're trying to do and feeling inspired and motivated, but furthermore, getting to know me and my team. You know, I met with so many of the attendees at our last conference, and so many of them, like, the comment that just kept coming up was, this has been such an incredible experience. It's so nice to see how authentic you are and how real you are, and your team's incredible. And off the back of those comments, what did they then go and do? They bought the program that we offered. Why? Because they trusted us. And it was that personal, in-person connection that actually made that happen. So my question for you, something to think about, is could you, if you're not already, could you be doing more virtual events? Could you be doing live in-person events? The thought of that might be daunting. The thought of that might be, I have no idea where to start. And you might even be thinking, John, surely that's only worth it if we get hundreds of people in the room. Isn't it embarrassing if we only get 10 people in a room? The answer to that is absolutely no. You should not be embarrassed. And in fact, some people like the smaller rooms. They feel like they're being taken care of more. I've got so many clients that are doing really small events and doing massive numbers as a result. You know, if you think you could get 10 people on a Zoom webinar or a Zoom virtual event, you might think, 10 people, that feels a bit small. It feels a little bit embarrassing. Is it going to be awkward? Or you can flip the script and say, I've got 10 potential clients sat on Zoom giving me their full undivided attention, and I've got an opportunity to provide a huge impact, improve these people's lives, give them a great impression of me and my business, and I think many of them might decide to become a client. And if you do this well, and if you do this right, you could actually have 10 people on Zoom and 5 of them become a client. And imagine your offer is $5,000. You're talking about a $25,000 day, a $25,000 moment when you had just 10 people on a Zoom call. You with me? Now, many of my clients charge $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 for the various things that they offer. So you can do the math. The numbers get quite big quite fast, even from small numbers. So you may just want to think about this in your business. All right. Second thing I want to talk about is that we may want to react to all of these changes in the marketplace by having multiple funnels. We've shown here in step 3, if you're watching the video version of this, that we've got this marketing funnel where we capture leads and then they move through to our conversion vehicle and we move down. You may want to have multiple conversion vehicles. Why? Because I think that there's a time and a place where someone has found a piece of your content or seen an ad from you and they've never heard of you before. And if that's the case, then we need to send them down a path where they can learn more about you and actually give them long form content. So it might be that if someone has been exposed to you for the very first time, that you invite them to your virtual event, right? Like give them a chance to spend more time with you and be provided more value before they make a decision to move forward with you. But what if you run an ad to an audience that have already been exposed to your content? They've seen you before. They actually like you. They've already been a part of your community in some way, shape or form, or they've been watching your content now on your YouTube channel for weeks and weeks and weeks, and they've consumed hours of your content. Now they opt back into a funnel. Do we need to send them down that same path? Maybe not. For those people, we can send them down a different path that is maybe back to the age-old 15-minute VSL funnel. You might be listening to this saying, John, you've said in previous episodes that VSLs don't work anymore. I don't think they work as that first piece. If someone's never heard of us before and the first point of contact is a 15-minute VSL with very little value and an invitation to book a call and become a client, that's what's not working very well at the moment. But once someone has watched you for hours and hours and hours, then they're interested in coming back to you. We don't need to send them down a long path again. Now we just need to give them the goods and give them a chance to hear about it. So I think there's an opportunity to have, I guess a simple way of thinking about this is a cold funnel and a warm funnel. And depending on where people are at in your journey, we're sending them down 2 different paths. All right? Hope that makes sense. Third thing, maybe you're making notes on this, maybe you're not. You need to understand what I call the cold to sold timeline, and you need to be clear on where you are putting the marker where marketing hands off to sales. Let's talk about this. The cold to sold timeline starts at a 0 and ends at a 10. The 0 represents someone's never heard of you before. A 10 represents that they're throwing their credit card at you and they're desperate to give you money and they're in and they're joining your program. Somewhere on that cold to sold timeline from 0 to 10, you are putting a marker. And that marker is where your marketing says, hey, I've done everything that I need to do to get these people to a 6. And now I'm handing them off to you, sales, to pick up and finish the job and close the person. So this would look like, okay, you've got your opt-in page and then you've got a webinar and a different virtual event. They've got loads of content. And then there's an invitation to book a call. Well, at the point of booking that call, they're roughly about a 6 now, meaning that they're getting close to sold. They've watched all of your stuff. They've been a part of your marketing. They've gone through your funnels and they like it. So they're a 6. Now they're on the phone with you. You only need to have a conversation with them that gets them from a 6 to a 10. Now, you can now picture that there are different marketing and sales strategies that has you putting that marker in different places. So going back to the VSL that we discussed a moment ago, which stands for a video sales letter, if someone is a 0 and they've never heard of you before, and you only send them to a 5 or 10 minute VSL and then give them an opportunity to book a call, you're putting the marker right down there at a 1 or a 2. Marketing hasn't really done much. They've only watched 5 or 10 minutes. Nothing else has happened. So marketing's not done much work, and now sales has got to pick it up and get someone from a 2 to a 10. And that's where you wonder why you're speaking to all of these prospects and you're having awful conversations that are not enjoyable. You're getting loads of pushback and you're being rejected time after time after time. It's because your marker was too low down, potentially. But of course, you can put the marker the other way. You can double down on your marketing and you can elongate your sales process, your sales funnel, to where now at the time of inviting them to book a call with you and maybe become a client, they're already up at a 9. That sounds good in theory, doesn't it? But there's a trade-off. So we have to understand what the trade-offs are, and then we can decide for our current marketing strategy, where do I want to put that marker? So let's look at what the trade-off is, okay? If we're down at the 0 and we're putting the marker at the 1 or the 2 or maybe the 3, then we've obviously got shorter marketing, meaning we haven't got to do much on the marketing front. And the opposite, if we put the marker at the 9 or the 8, is a longer marketing process. So there's more work that needs to go into it. So the trade-off is quite simply, we put it down here and we haven't had to do much marketing. We put it up on the other side and we've had to do loads of marketing, more effort. But then other things are coupled with that. So for example, down at the 1 or the 2, you're going to be getting cheaper calls booked. And up on the other side, you're paying a more premium price to get those calls booked. But here's the thing. Down on the lower end, because of those advantages, less marketing, cheaper calls being booked, the quality is also lower. And that's why you get on the phone and they don't close. Whereas the trade-off for all the extra work you put in to get people at an 8 or a 9, you're getting much higher quality. Same goes for the volume. Down at the 1 or the 2, you're getting loads and loads and loads of calls booked because the barrier to entry is really low. But up at the top end, you're getting hardly anyone booking those calls because the barrier to entry was really high. But when they do book, the quality is really high too. I think you understand what I'm saying here. So you need to assess your current marketing and sales strategy and determine where you're putting that marker currently and decide if that's serving you and your business's needs properly right now. If you want more calls and you don't mind the quality being lower because you've got a sales team that you just want to give them as many leads as possible, then maybe the marker goes more towards the 3 or the 4. If you're a solopreneur and you're taking all the calls yourself and you want to have a decent amount of calls, but you want to make sure they're super qualified and there's a high chance they're going to convert, then you're going to maybe want to try and put it up at the 6 or the 7. So we make this decision based on the business's needs and where you're at currently right now. But here's the kicker. Once you decide, you have to accept the decision that you've made. You can't have it all. You can't have the cheapest leads with the least amount of work, but the highest quality and the highest conversions, right? You can't have things from opposite ends of the cold to sold timeline. There's a trade-off either way, and so you've got to live with your decision. So really important, some food for thought for you to think about. Number 4 on this list of big takeaways that I'm sharing with you here, displayed understanding. Do you know what that means? This is a concept that I've been teaching my clients for years and years and years now. And the idea is that we want to get so good in our marketing that we can display to the prospect that we understand them, their problem, where they're at and what they need, potentially even better than they can describe it themselves. And if you get to that place, by the way, it's a very, very powerful place to be. Because if you think about it, your prospect right now, they've currently got a problem, and that problem is keeping them stuck, frazzled, frustrated, maybe even depressed, like they've got a problem. And when they have a problem and they're sitting in that problem, it's often very difficult for said prospect to then take a 40,000-foot view on the situation and maybe even be able to articulate it and describe it. So if you come in as the solution to this and you're able to describe the prospect's needs, wants, desires, current situation, how they must be feeling better than they even can themselves, they are sold on you, right? So what's the key takeaway here? Less so now in the marketing world do we want to be talking about ourselves, and we want to be more so talking about the prospect. In episode 1 of this 3-part series here, we were talking about how there's just noise in the marketplace right now. And there's competition coming out of our ears. It's everywhere. So how do we elevate ourselves? Team, this is how you elevate yourself. If you endeavor to display understanding in all of your marketing pieces, you are going to rise above your competition and demonstrate that you are the pick. You are the choice for your clients to choose. All right. And here's another tip that I wasn't actually planning on sharing, but I think you'll find this helpful, is couple that with a unique framework for what you do, and you will clean up. You will win. Why? Because if you're just recycling information that's already out there and just trying to describe it in a better, more eloquent way, well, it's still information that's circulating. Whereas if you can take a framework that no one has seen before, it's unique to you, and you're unique in the way you're displaying understanding, you win. I mean, take this as an example. If you're listening to this, you won't be able to see it, but we're looking at my visual framework that I call the momentum framework. And this is exactly how I go about launching and scaling 6, 7, and even 8-figure education businesses. I've taught this to hundreds, if not thousands of people right now that have generated, my clients collectively, we just tallied this up recently, reported revenue for my clients, 126 million in revenue. That's just what we know of. Incredibly proud of that number, by the way, but it's using this framework. So when I'm trying to articulate this to new potential clients of mine, I can go out there and try to explain, different things that are already out there, or I can say, look at this momentum framework. Look how beautiful and colorful it is. And they go, wow, that looks amazing. Then I explain how this is how I get my results in the business. It's like, I have to have that framework. So I've coupled displayed understanding with a unique framework, and you can do the same thing. It's very, very powerful. The fifth thing is, and I've already alluded to it so many times, so let's just round it off and talk about it. Longer sales cycles are needed now in the marketplace. And coupled with that is a longer value cycle. We don't just want a longer sales funnel that is super salesy. What we want is to understand that it's taking the average person longer now to make a buying decision in our industry. So if it's taking longer, then firstly, we need to expect it. But secondly, what do we fill that extension of time with now? Do we just try to force our products down their throat and be more salesy? Or do we fill that time with just doubling down on more value, great content, and then we get them to a point where they're ready to make that decision? So if you're currently listening to this right now and your marketing strategy is all centered around those VSLs, then you might need to think about now moving to webinars. If you're already using webinars, you might want to think about moving to longer webinars, or maybe even a virtual event. All right. It's just so important that you're doing this and that you're thinking about it and not staying stuck in the old way of doing it and trying to force a 10-minute VSL to do what it used to do in 2014. It just simply doesn't work anymore. I want to leave you with hopefully some comforting thoughts. If you're finding this hard right now and you're just feeling alone, then just understand this is part of the journey, and it's so good that you're tuning in and listening to this podcast and hopefully consuming my content in other places, because it can feel lonely and it can feel difficult. And sometimes social media and podcast hosts and other platforms make it sound like when people have got it all together, they've got it all together. When they've seen success, they only see success. And the reality is that's not the case. I have ups and downs. I've generated over $40 million online at this point. I've been able to do some incredible stuff. I've got an amazing SaaS business. We've got our education business. We've got our events business. We've got our masterminds. We've got our investments. All of that stuff is awesome. But it's not without stress. It's not without headache, and it's not without issues coming up. I did our last AdCon, and it produced, well and truly past 7 figures in sales. Awesome, right? On the surface, that looks great. We talk about it here in podcasts. You're like, wow, that's so cool. But then guess what? Straight after our last event, we tried to do a virtual version of the event. I spent close to £100,000 getting that thing to work and promote it and market it. For reasons that we haven't got time to talk about today, it didn't work. I basically lost £100,000 trying to do an online version of what had just produced 7 figures in person, right? Like, that kind of sucks. And so I had to pick myself back up and learn the lessons, from it. We had an amazing run with our marketing business from the years 2020 to 2024. It was so profitable, incredible, having so much fun. And then in 2025, I actually had a pretty crappy time. I was finding that I wasn't enjoying my business anymore. I wasn't enjoying the things that I was doing. We were too, bloated as a team. Cash was all over the place. It was just a mess. But I picked myself back up. I learned new lessons and I figured out how to navigate it. And now we're in a great place again where I'm enjoying myself, enjoying the business, and we're doing some cool stuff. And so, I could tell you 101 different examples, but I did want to just leave you with that. We've talked about big changes that are on the horizon, that are already here, how to navigate them. You might be listening to this going, John, this has been great, thank you. But at the same time, John, I'm a little bit overwhelmed. And I just wanted you to understand that feeling is not foreign to other people in this space as well. We've all been through it. We all still feel it. And it's so important that you maintain listening to this type of content and getting around people that get you, can encourage you and inspire you. So with that being said, I really hope you're finding this podcast helpful. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I've got lots of incredible content, special guests, and all sorts of stuff lined up for you that I can't wait for you to experience as well. All right, so go ahead, tune in again. Make sure that you're following this podcast on the different channels, and I can't wait to see you in the next episode.